I won a Nobel Prize, and I still don't know why the hell I ate a tuna sandwich yesterday. Think about that. I can describe quantum electrodynamics to you. I can tell you how light decides which path to take through the universe. But why I picked tuna over turkey at 12:47 p.m. on a Tuesday? Completely mysterious. And here's the thing that'll either comfort you or terrify you. Neither do you. You think you know why you do things. You've got reasons, stories. But those aren't causes. They're something much stranger. And once you understand what they actually are, your entire relationship with regret, with guilt, with "if only I had done differently," it just evaporates. Look, I know what you're probably thinking right now. You're thinking, come on, Feynman, you're being dramatic. Of course you know why you ate the tuna. Maybe you were hungry for fish. Maybe the turkey looked dry. Maybe you always eat tuna on Tuesdays. And sure, yeah, you could tell that story. I could tell that story. But here's what I want you to really understand, and I mean really sit with this. That story you just told. That's not the cause. That's the story you're telling yourself about the cause after the fact. It's a narrative. It's a little piece of fiction you wrote to make sense of something that already happened. And this matters. God, does this matter? Because right now, as you're listening to me, you're carrying around guilt and shame and regret over things you believe you caused. Your failed relationship. You caused that because you weren't attentive enough. Your career struggles. You caused those because you didn't work hard enough. Your loneliness, your anxiety, your disappointments. You caused all of it because you made the wrong choices, because you weren't smart enough or strong enough or good enough to choose differently. And every single day, you replay those moments. You watch them like old movies in your head, trying to find the exact frame where you went wrong. The conversation where you said the wrong thing, the opportunity you didn't take, the moment you turned left instead of right. And you torture yourself with this question. Why did I do that? What caused me to make that choice? Because if you can just find the cause, then you can fix it. Then you can make sure you don't make the same mistake again. Then you can finally stop being the person who ruins everything. But here's what I'm going to show you in the next half hour or so. That entire framework, that whole way of thinking about cause and effect, it's too simple to be true. It's a map that doesn't match the territory. And you've been using this broken map your entire life, trying to navigate your way out of pain and wondering why you keep getting lost. See, you think cause and effect is a chain you can trace backwards, like dominoes falling. One thing causes another thing, which causes another thing. Clean. Linear. Makes sense. And if you can just trace the chain back far enough, you'll find where it all started. You'll find the cause, and then, and this is the beautiful lie we tell ourselves, then you'll understand. Then you'll have control. Then you'll be able to change. But that's not how causation actually works in the real world, especially not in the world of human decisions and outcomes. You've confused explanation with causation. You've confused the story you tell afterwards with the forces that were operating beforehand. And this confusion is absolutely destroying you. Because here's the thing, and I really need you to hear this. When you look at successful people, you think they caused their success through willpower and right choices, which means you caused your struggles through weakness and wrong ones. Every setback becomes a personal moral failure. Every mistake becomes evidence that you're fundamentally broken. And the weight of being the sole cause of everything that went wrong in your life? That weight is unbearable. I've watched it crush brilliant people. I've watched it crush people I love. So what I'm going to do is show you what causation actually looks like when you stop simplifying it for textbooks and start looking at it honestly. Really honestly. The way a physicist looks at things when they're not trying to make it pretty for students. And I'm going to show you why blame, including self-blame, especially self-blame, is based on a physics that doesn't exist. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Great, Feynman's going to tell me that nothing is my fault, that I have no responsibility, that I'm just a victim of circumstances. No, God, no. That's not what I'm saying at all. Stay with me. Because what I'm actually going to show you is so much more interesting and so much more liberating than either everything is your fault or nothing is your fault. I'm going to show you that what you call the cause of something is actually just the story you tell about which variables you decided to pay attention to. It's not physics, it's narrative, and once you see that, once you really see it, you're free. Not free from responsibility, free from the crushing story that you were the simple sole cause of your suffering. And that's a different kind of freedom entirely. So let's start with something simple. Let's start with an ant. I want you to imagine you're at a picnic and you're watching an ant. This ant is carrying a crumb and it's walking across the blanket, and then it gets to a pebble and it turns left. Just turns left and keeps walking. Now, simple question. What caused the ant to turn left? And you might say, well, the pebble. Obviously, the pebble was in the way, so the ant had to turn. And okay, sure. That's a story. That's a perfectly fine story. The pebble caused the turn. But now let's zoom out a little bit. Let's say there's a chemical trail from other ants that came before, and that trail curves left around the pebble. Did the chemical trail cause the turn? Or did the pebble cause the turn? Well, you might say both. Both caused it. Okay, fair enough. But now let's add more. There's a slight breeze blowing from the right, making it harder to go right. There's a temperature gradient. It's slightly cooler on the left side of the pebble. The ant has genetic programming that says, when encountering obstacles, favor left turns over right turns. There's quantum randomness in the neural firing of the ant's tiny brain. There's the fact that the ant is hungry, which affects how it responds to chemical trails. There's the entire evolutionary history that shaped ants to respond to these signals in these ways. So now, which one caused the turn? The pebble? The chemical trail? The breeze? The temperature? The genes? The quantum randomness? The hunger? The evolution? And here's the devastating question. Really sit with this one. Which one is the real cause? Which one actually made the ant turn left? The answer, and this is where it gets interesting, is all of them. And also, none of them. Your choice of which one to call the cause depends entirely on what story you want to tell. What explanation serves your purpose in that moment? If you're trying to explain to a 5-year-old, you say, the pebble made it turn. If you're a biologist studying ant behavior, you talk about the chemical trails and the genetic programming. If you're a physicist, maybe you talk about the temperature gradient and the energy minimization. If you're a philosopher, maybe you talk about the whole evolutionary history. But here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. None of these stories is more true than the others. They're all true. They're all partial. They're all selecting certain variables out of an infinite web of causation and saying, this is the cause. The ant turned left because of everything. Every single thing that exists in the universe, in some infinitesimally small way, contributed to that ant turning left at that exact moment. The gravity of distant stars, the butterfly that flapped its wings in China last week, the fact that the universe began 13.8 billion years ago with the Big Bang. Now, I can see you thinking, okay, Feynman, that's cute with the ant, but that's different from human choices. I'm not an ant. I have consciousness. I have free will. I can think about my choices. And you're absolutely right. You're vastly more complex than the ant, which is exactly my point. If the ant, a creature with maybe a few 100,000 neurons, is this impossibly complex in terms of causation, then you, with your 86 billion neurons, each connected to thousands of others, each firing in patterns shaped by every single thing that's ever happened to you, every chemical in your body, every social interaction, every random cosmic ray that hit your brain at just the wrong moment. You are so complex that the idea of finding the cause of your choices is absurd. It's not just hard. It's not just complicated. It's fundamentally impossible because the cause is a fiction. It's a story we tell to make the infinite complexity manageable. But, and here's where the pain comes in, we don't just use this fiction for ants, we use it for ourselves. You look at your failed marriage and you say, I caused it because I worked too much. You're selecting working too much out of an infinite web of causation and calling it the cause. You're ignoring your childhood attachment patterns, your partner's childhood attachment patterns, the economic system that demands overwork, the cultural narratives about what marriage should be, the specific timing of when certain conflicts happened, the neurochemistry of both of you during key conversations, random chance, the weather on the day of your worst fight. Literally everything that contributed to the marriage ending. And you're ignoring all of that and saying, I caused it because I worked too much. And then, this is the brutal part, you blame yourself. You carry guilt. You think, if only I had worked less, the marriage would have survived. As if you were simple enough that changing that one variable would have changed everything. As if you were an ant and the pebble was the only thing that mattered. But you're not an ant. You're not a simple system. You're an emergent miracle of complexity. And the relief, the relief of understanding that is enormous. Because once you understand this, you can stop torturing yourself with that question. Why did I do that? You did it because of everything. Every single thing that made you who you are at that moment. And you can't isolate one cause any more than you can isolate one cause of the ant's left turn. Now, I want to take this deeper because there's something even stranger going on. Something that, when I first really understood it, made me feel like the ground was shifting under my feet. I want you to imagine, and really try to visualize this. Imagine you're watching a film of your own life. And I mean your whole life, every moment recorded somehow. And you're watching it, and it's playing forward like normal. You see yourself as a child, making friends, getting hurt, learning things. You see yourself as a teenager, falling in love, getting rejected, making choices. You see yourself as an adult, choosing careers, choosing partners, making mistakes, having successes. And as you watch it play forward, you see cause and effect everywhere. You see how your childhood wound caused your adult relationships to fail. You see how your early failure caused your fear of trying new things. You see how that one teacher's encouragement caused you to pursue a certain path. It all makes sense. Cause, cause, cause. Effect, effect, effect. Okay, now I want you to imagine taking that same film and playing it backwards, just rewinding it and watching it run in reverse. And here's what's so strange. Running backwards, every consequence now looks like it's causing its cause. The divorce causes the arguments that came before it. The loneliness causes the poor social choices. The career failure causes the lack of preparation. Your current anxiety causes the childhood trauma that led to it. And here's the part that should make you very uncomfortable. That backward story makes just as much sense as the forwards one. Logically, structurally, narratively, it holds together just as well. Why? Because causation in complex systems isn't a line. It's not even a tree with branches. It's a web. It's a network so dense that you can read it in any direction and construct a coherent story. You've been watching the film forwards and calling it truth, but it's not truth. It's just one direction of viewing, one story you can tell. The backward story is equally valid. The sideways story is equally valid. The story that starts in the middle and spirals out is equally valid. And now here's where it gets really interesting, really practical. Your regrets, all those painful regrets you carry, they're based on assuming the direction you watched was the only direction that existed. You watched forward and saw yourself causing your pain. But you could just as easily watch backwards and see your pain causing your earlier choices. Let me make this concrete. You regret not taking that job opportunity 10 years ago. You think, if only I had taken that job, my life would be so different. You're watching forward. The job decision caused your current dissatisfaction. But flip it around. Your current dissatisfaction is causing you to remember that job opportunity as significant. If you were happy now, you might not even remember that opportunity. Or you might remember it as, that job I wisely avoided. Your future state is literally causing which past events become significant causes. And this isn't just philosophy. This is how your brain actually works. Your current emotional state determines which memories you have access to and how you interpret them. When you're depressed, you remember times you failed. When you're happy, you remember times you succeeded. The same past, different memories, different causes. So you're not remembering causes, you're creating them in real time, right now, based on your current state and your anticipated future. Think about that. Really think about it. Your present emotional state causes your past to exist in a certain way, which then justifies your present emotional state. It's a loop, a causal loop. The future causes the past, causes the present, causes the future. And once you see this loop, something interesting happens. You realize that if the past is being created by the future you're anticipating, then you can change your past by changing your anticipated future. I don't mean changing what happened. I mean changing which parts of what happened get labeled as causes, changing which memories are accessible, changing the story. A student came to me once, this was years ago, and she was devastated because she had failed an exam. Not just sad, devastated. And she kept saying, I failed because I'm stupid. That's the cause. I'm just not smart enough for physics. And I asked her, okay, what else contributed to you failing? And she started listing things. She hadn't slept well. She'd had a fight with her boyfriend that morning. The exam had questions on a topic the professor had barely covered. She'd been sick the week before. She'd been working 2 jobs to pay for school. The classroom was too hot and she couldn't concentrate. And I kept asking, what else? What else? And she kept going. Her high school hadn't prepared her well. She'd had a terrible physics teacher in 10th grade who made her feel stupid. She was the first in her family to go to college and didn't know how to study effectively. She was dealing with imposter syndrome. The textbook was poorly written. She learns better by doing than by reading. We got to about 30 things, 30 different causes. And somewhere around cause number 15, I saw her face change. The weight started lifting. Because she was starting to see that I'm stupid was just one story she could tell out of infinite possible stories. It wasn't the truth. It was a choice of which variable to emphasize. And then I asked her, what are you afraid will happen in the future? And she said, I'm afraid I'll fail out of school. I'm afraid I'll disappoint my family. I'm afraid I'll never be a scientist. And I said, right, so you're anticipating failure, and that anticipated future is making you construct your past as, I failed because I'm stupid, because that story confirms the future you're afraid of. You're reading the film backwards. Your feared future is causing your interpretation of your past. So what if you anticipated something different? What if you imagined a future where you become a decent physicist? Not a great one, maybe, there's no guarantees, but decent. Someone who contributes something. What story would you tell then? And I watched her think about it. Really think about it. And she said slowly, I guess I'd say I failed that exam because I was learning. Because that's what learning looks like sometimes. You fail, you adjust, you try again. Same past, different anticipated future, different story, different cause. And here's the thing, she did become a decent physicist, not because of positive thinking, not because changing the story magically changed reality, but because the story she told affected her actions, which affected her results, which affected her future story. The loop goes both ways. Now, some of you are feeling uncomfortable right now. I can feel it. You're thinking, wait, if causes are just stories, if the past is being constructed by the future, if everything is this complicated web where nothing is clearly causing anything else, then what's even real? Why does anything matter? How do I make decisions? How do I learn from mistakes if there's no clear cause to fix? and that's exactly the right place to be. That discomfort you're feeling, that's the sound of your old map of causation cracking, and it's supposed to be uncomfortable. You've been using that map your whole life. But stay with me, because what I'm about to show you is that there's something so much more interesting on the other side of this discomfort. See, the reason we cling to simple causation is because we think it gives us control. If X causes Y, then I can control Y by controlling X. Simple, but here's what that simplification costs you. It costs you accuracy. It costs you compassion. And most of all, it costs you freedom. Let me show you what I mean. Let's talk about what you actually are. Because I think you've been thinking about yourself all wrong. You've been thinking of yourself like a billiard ball on a table. Things happen to you. Someone hits you with a cue stick. An event strikes you. And you react. You move in a predictable direction based on the force and angle of impact. Cause and effect. Simple. And if you react in a way you don't like, you think, well, I should have been a different kind of ball, a heavier ball that doesn't move so easily, a harder ball that doesn't dent. You blame the ball, yourself, for responding to the hit. But here's the thing. You're not a billiard ball. You're not even close. A billiard ball doesn't have a model of itself. It doesn't predict what's going to happen. It doesn't have a running narrative about what the other balls think of it. It doesn't interpret the meaning of being struck. It just responds to physical force. But you're a system that models itself, modeling the world, modeling itself. Read that again. You model yourself, modeling the world, modeling yourself. It's recursive. It goes all the way down and all the way up. When something happens to you, you don't just respond to the thing. You respond to your interpretation of the thing, which is based on your previous interpretations, which is based on your model of yourself, which is based on your model of how other people see you, which is based on your interpretation of their responses to your previous interpretations. It's loops within loops within loops, and every loop is a causal loop. Everything is causing everything else simultaneously. Let me make this concrete. Someone criticizes you at work. That's the cause, right? The criticism causes you to feel bad. But no, you don't respond to the criticism directly. You respond to your interpretation of the criticism, which is based on your model of the critic. Are they credible? Are they trying to help you or hurt you? Do they understand your work? Do they have authority? And your model of the critic is based on your previous interactions with them, and your previous interactions with them were interpreted through your model of yourself. Are you someone who's good at this work? Are you someone who's always being unfairly criticized? Are you someone who needs to prove themselves? And your model of yourself is based on your model of how others see you, and that's based on your interpretation of their past responses, which was based on your interpretation of their model of you, which was based on, do you see, it's turtles all the way down. There's no bottom. There's no simple cause. The criticism didn't cause you to feel bad. Your entire recursive self-model, built up over years, shaped by infinite variables, created a response to your interpretation of the criticism as filtered through all those layers of modeling. And here's the kicker. That recursive self-model is changing in real time, based on the response you're having right now, which will affect your future interpretations, which will affect your future responses. You're not a billiard ball. You're not a simple system. You're so complex that the notion of finding a simple cause for your responses is like trying to predict the weather for a year from now by looking at a single cloud. And you know what? This is good news. This is really, really good news. Because if you're this complex, if there are this many loops and variables and recursions, then there's no simple root cause to find. There's nothing fundamentally broken in you that needs to be fixed. There's no moment in your past where if you had just chosen differently, everything would be fine now. You're not broken. You're just complex. And the exhaustion you've been feeling, the exhaustion from trying to find the root cause of why you are the way you are, that's exhaustion from chasing something that doesn't exist. There is no root. There are infinite roots. It's a web, not a tree. Now, I want to talk about something that might make some of you angry. I want to talk about blame, because I think blame is one of the most pernicious lies we tell ourselves, and it's all based on this broken understanding of causation. Here's how blame works. To blame someone, including yourself, you have to pretend they were simpler than they actually are. You have to ignore the infinite web of causation and pretend there was one simple cause: their choice, their character, their fault. Think about the last time you really blamed yourself for something. Really blamed yourself, felt that heavy guilt, that sense of, I should have known better, I should have done differently. Now think about everything that contributed to that moment. Your neurochemistry at the time, your blood sugar, how much sleep you'd gotten, what else was on your mind, what information you had access to, what information you didn't have, your entire history leading up to that point, the social context, the cultural narratives you'd absorbed, the evolutionary programming in your brain, the random firing of neurons, the weather, the time of day. Think about all of it. Really, truly, all of it. Now, with all of that in mind, was it really just you who caused that outcome? Was it really so simple that you can isolate yourself as the sole causal agent and say, I'm to blame? Or is blame something we do when we want to simplify an infinitely complex causal web into something manageable? Something we can point to and say, that's the problem? Every act of blame is an act of false simplification. Every single one. And look, I know what some of you are thinking. Okay, Feynman, so you're saying no one is responsible for anything. Everyone's just a victim of infinite causation. We can't hold anyone accountable. No, that's not what I'm saying. Listen carefully, because this distinction is crucial. Responsibility and causation are different things, completely different things. You can hold someone accountable without believing they were the simple, sole cause. You can have standards and boundaries and consequences without the accompanying story that people are simple cause and effect machines who should have known better. Let me explain. When I say you can't blame yourself for your past choices, I'm not saying you had no involvement. I'm not saying you were just a leaf blown by the wind. I'm saying that your involvement was as one variable in an infinite web, not as the sole cause. And moving forward, you can still make choices. You can still set intentions. You can still try to do better. But you can do all of that without the crushing weight of believing you were the simple cause of your past failures. It's like this. Imagine you're steering a ship through a storm. You're at the helm, making decisions about which way to turn the wheel. Are you causing where the ship goes? Yes, in the sense that your choices matter. They're one variable. But the ship is also being pushed by waves, pulled by currents, blown by wind, affected by the weight distribution of the cargo, the design of the hull, the skill of the crew, random fluctuations in water pressure, the phase of the moon affecting the tides. You can take responsibility for turning the wheel while also acknowledging that you're not the sole cause of where the ship ends up. You can do your best without blaming yourself when the storm is too strong. You can learn from what happened without the story that it was all your fault. That's what I mean by responsibility without blame, accountability without false simplification. And this changes everything about how you relate to your mistakes. Instead of, I caused this because I'm fundamentally flawed, it becomes, this outcome emerged from infinite variables, including my choices, and I can make different choices going forward while having compassion for why I made the choices I made then. That's freedom. That's actual freedom. Not freedom from responsibility, but freedom from the lie that you were simple enough to be the sole cause. Now, let's go even deeper, because there's one more piece of this puzzle that I think will completely transform how you see yourself and your choices. I want to talk about emergence, and I know that sounds like a technical term, but stay with me, because this is where it gets beautiful. Emergence is what happens when you put simple things together and get something completely new, something that wasn't in any of the parts. Like, think about water. A water molecule, H2O, isn't wet. Wetness doesn't exist at the molecular level, But you put trillions of water molecules together, and suddenly you have this new property, wetness. It emerged from the interactions of the molecules. It wasn't in any individual molecule, but it's real. You can feel it. Or think about your brain. A single neuron doesn't think. It can't. It doesn't have thoughts or feelings or consciousness. It just fires or doesn't fire based on chemical and electrical signals. But you put 86 billion neurons together, connecting in this incredibly complex network, and suddenly you have thoughts. Consciousness. The feeling of being you. Where did that come from? It's not in any single neuron, it's not even in all the neurons added together. It emerged from the pattern of connections, the dynamics of the system. And here's what this means for you, for your choices, for your life. You are both completely caused and completely novel in every single moment. Think about that paradox. Every choice you make is completely determined by everything that came before, your history, your biology, your environment, all of it. There's no magic force, no soul separate from the physical world, making uncaused choices. You're part of the causal web like everything else. But, and this is the beautiful part, you're also completely novel, because you are an emergent property of that causal web. You're not reducible to any of the causes. You're something new that emerged from their interaction. It's like how wetness is completely caused by the molecules, but isn't in any of the molecules. You're completely caused by your history, but you're not reducible to your history. Both things are true, and they're true at different levels of description. At the level of neurons and chemicals and physics, you're completely determined. Every thought, every feeling, every choice comes from the mechanical operation of your brain. But at the level of experience, at the level of the emergent you, you're making genuine choices. You're creating new things. You're not just executing a predetermined program. Both are true, the determinism and the freedom. And you need both levels to understand what's actually happening. This is why I can tell you, you didn't simply cause your failures, while also telling you, you can choose differently going forward. It's not a contradiction. It's two different levels of description of the same phenomenon. At the mechanical level, your past failures emerged from infinite causes. At the emergent level, you failed, and you can learn and grow. At the mechanical level, your future choices are being shaped right now by everything happening in your brain and body and environment. At the emergent level, you're going to make choices, and those choices will be genuinely yours. And here's why this matters practically. You can stop trying to find the mechanical cause of everything. You can stop trying to debug yourself like you're a broken machine, because at the level you're actually living your life, the emergent level, there's no single bug to find. There's just the complex, beautiful, messy process of being a conscious being in an infinitely complex world. You can have compassion for yourself at the mechanical level while having agency at the emergent level. You can understand that your past choices were shaped by forces beyond your control while knowing that your future choices are genuinely open. This isn't just philosophy. This changes how you actually live. When you make a mistake, instead of diving into the mechanical level trying to find what's wrong with you, you can stay at the emergent level and ask, what can I learn from this? How can I grow? What do I want to do differently? You don't need to find the root cause in your childhood, or your brain chemistry, or your character flaws. You can just be a person who did a thing, learned something, and is choosing something different now. That's what emergence gives you, the freedom to be both caused and free, both determined and creative, both shaped by everything and genuinely new. Okay, so we've gone pretty deep into the philosophy here. We've talked about ants and picnics, about films running backwards, about billiard balls and recursive self-models, about blame and emergence. And maybe your head is spinning a little bit. Maybe you're thinking, this is all very interesting, Feynman, but what do I actually do with this? How does this change how I live my life tomorrow? So let me give you something concrete. Not rules, because rules would be just another attempt to simplify causation. but practices. Ways of relating to cause and effect that actually match the territory. First practice, the cause inventory. This is something you can do right now, today, the next time you find yourself blaming yourself for something. When you catch yourself thinking, I ruined everything because I did X, stop. Just stop. And take out a piece of paper or open a note on your phone, and I want you to list every possible cause you can think of for what happened. And I mean every possible cause. Don't just list the obvious ones. Really dig. Aim for at least 20. At least. Include your biology. Include your history. Include what other people did. Include random chance. Include systems you're part of. Include information you didn't have. Include societal forces. Include timing. Include your interpretation of events. Include your past interpretations that shaped this interpretation. For example, let's say you're blaming yourself for losing your temper at your kid. You think, I'm a bad parent because I yelled. Okay, so start listing causes. You were tired because you only slept 5 hours. You were hungry because you skipped lunch. Your blood sugar was low. You were stressed about work. Your own parents yelled at you, and that's your learned response to stress. Your kid was also tired and acting out more than usual. The house was messy, and that triggers your anxiety. You had just gotten off a frustrating phone call. You were already feeling like a bad parent, so you were primed to confirm that belief. Your culture doesn't give you good models for emotional regulation. You're living in a society that doesn't support parents adequately. You're dealing with neurochemistry that makes you more reactive when stressed. You didn't have time to decompress after work. Your kid said the exact thing that hits your deepest insecurity. You were interpreting their behavior through a lens of, they're doing this on purpose to upset me, rather than, they're also struggling. Random neuron firing in your amygdala at that exact moment. The fact that you're human and humans get overwhelmed. The impossible standards for parents in modern society. Your exhaustion from trying to meet those standards. The specific timing of when this happened in the day. The accumulation of small stresses throughout the week. And you keep going. You keep listing. And somewhere around cause number 15 or 20, something interesting happens. The weight starts to lift. Because you start to see that you weren't the simple sole cause. You were one variable in an incredibly complex situation. And notice, this doesn't mean you have no responsibility. You still yelled. You still want to do better. But you can want to do better without the crushing story that you're fundamentally a bad parent who caused this through some character flaw. You can see the whole web of causation and think, okay, given all of this, I'm going to try to get more sleep. I'm going to try to eat lunch. I'm going to work on my emotional regulation. I'm going to have compassion for myself when I'm struggling, and I'm going to apologize to my kid. That's so much more productive than, I'm a bad parent and I need to fix what's wrong with me. The cause inventory doesn't excuse you, it contextualizes you, and context is where compassion lives. Second practice, the future first reframe. This one is about recognizing that your memories aren't fixed. They're being reconstructed right now based on what you're anticipating about the future. So next time you find yourself dwelling on a painful memory, maybe that relationship that ended, or that opportunity you didn't take, or that time you embarrassed yourself, try this. First, notice what future you're afraid of. What are you anticipating that makes you remember this event as traumatic or shameful or devastating? Are you afraid you'll never find love again? Are you afraid you're going to keep making the same mistakes? Are you afraid everyone thinks you're an idiot? Really identify the feared future. Write it down if you can. Then deliberately imagine a different future. Not a fake positive future. I'm not asking you to pretend everything will be perfect, but a realistic, different future. For example, if the memory is about a relationship that ended badly, and your feared future is, I'll be alone forever, imagine instead, I'll meet someone else eventually. It might take time. It might not be perfect. But I'll connect with someone. Just imagine that. Really visualize it. not as a certainty but as a possibility. And then notice how the memory shifts. Notice how, when you're imagining a future where you do connect with someone, that past relationship doesn't feel quite so devastating. The same events, but they mean something different now. Or if the memory is about missing an opportunity, and your feared future is, I ruined my one chance at success, imagine instead, there will be other opportunities, different ones, maybe not the same, but other paths. And notice how the memory of missing that one opportunity becomes less catastrophic. It becomes a thing that happened rather than the moment I destroyed my life. This isn't positive thinking. This isn't pretending. This is recognizing the actual mechanism of how memory works. Your current anticipated future is literally creating your past right now. So if you can shift what you're anticipating, not through force or denial, but through genuinely opening up to other possibilities, your past shifts too. And here's a small daily version of this. Every night before bed, spend 2 minutes imagining tomorrow going reasonably well. Not perfectly, just reasonably well. Imagine yourself handling challenges with some competence. Imagine small good moments. And then notice, the next day, how your memories of today are different. How events that might have been filed as evidence I'm failing get filed instead as normal life stuff. You're not changing what happens. You're changing which future lens you're using to interpret what happens, and that changes everything. Third practice, holding paradox. This one is about getting comfortable with the fact that you're both completely caused and completely free, and not trying to resolve that paradox. Practice saying this out loud. I am completely caused and I am completely free. Don't pick one. Don't try to figure out which is more true. Just hold both. And then, in your actual life, use the right level at the right time. When you're planning, when you're taking action, when you're making choices. Act as if you're free. Because at the emergent level, you are. Your choices are real. They matter. They're genuinely yours. Don't get paralyzed by thinking about all the causes shaping your decision. Just make the decision. Exercise your agency. But when you're reflecting on past choices, when you're trying to understand yourself or others, when you're dealing with guilt or blame, think in terms of causation. See the infinite web. Have compassion for the complexity. Don't beat yourself up for not having chosen differently when you see all the forces that shaped that choice. This is the balance. Freedom for action, causation for understanding. And it prevents 2 traps. It prevents paralysis. I can't do anything because everything is determined. And it prevents narcissism. Everything that happens is caused by my choices and my will. Both traps come from picking one side of the paradox. The wisdom is in holding both. For example, say you're trying to exercise more. When you're actually making the choice to exercise or not, be free. Just choose. Don't overthink it. I'm going for a run now, or I'm resting today. Your choice, your agency. But if you don't exercise and you start feeling guilty, switch lenses. Look at causation. I didn't exercise today because I was exhausted, because I didn't sleep well, because work is stressful, because I don't actually enjoy the kind of exercise I've been trying to do, because I was taught that exercise is punishment, because my body is giving me signals that I need rest. See the web. Have compassion. And then tomorrow, switch back to freedom. Make a choice from your agency. Try a different kind of movement. Or rest more consciously. Or push through. Whatever you choose, own it as a genuine choice. The paradox isn't a problem to solve. It's the actual structure of being human. You're both. Always both. Now, I want to bring this all together and talk about what this actually means for your life. For how you wake up tomorrow and move through the world. Because I think what we're really talking about here, under all the philosophy and the physics and the complexity, is freedom. Real freedom. Not the fake freedom of I can do whatever I want. but the genuine freedom of understanding what you actually are. You've been living in a prison of simple causation, a prison where you're the sole cause of your failures and somehow not the sole cause of your successes, where you carry crushing guilt for things that emerged from infinite complexity, where you replay the same moments over and over, trying to find the one thing you could have done differently, as if you were simple enough for that to make sense. And what I'm offering you, what all of this is offering you, is a way out of that prison. Not through denial, not through positive thinking, but through seeing clearly. When you see that causation is an infinite web, not a simple chain, you're released from the crushing weight of being the sole cause of your suffering. When you see that your past is being reconstructed from your future, you're released from the prison of fixed traumatic memories. When you see that you're both completely caused and completely free, you're released from both paralysis and grandiosity. You become, finally, right-sized. Not too big, you're not the center of all causation, the sole creator of your reality. But not too small either. You're not just a helpless victim of circumstance, a leaf blown by forces beyond your control. You're one variable in an infinite web. And that's exactly the right size. That's what you actually are. And from that right-sized place, you can finally start to live without the constant weight of guilt and regret. You can make mistakes without them meaning you're fundamentally broken. You can have pain without it meaning you caused it through some character flaw. You can have success without needing to pretend you did it all yourself. You can just be a human being, doing your best in an impossibly complex world, shaped by everything, creating something new in every moment. That's freedom. That's what's on the other side of understanding cause and effect properly. And look, I know some of you are still skeptical. You're thinking, but Feynman, doesn't this make everything meaningless? If I'm not really causing anything, if it's all just infinite complexity, why should I try? Why should I care? Why does anything matter? And I want to answer that directly because it's important. Meaning doesn't come from being the simple cause of things. Meaning comes from participation, from being part of the web, from the fact that your choices matter even if they're not the sole cause. When you sing in a choir, your voice isn't the sole cause of the music. But it matters. The music would be different without you. You're participating in creating something beautiful, even though you're just one voice among many. That's what your life is. You're one voice in an infinite choir, and your voice matters. What you choose matters. How you show up matters. Not because you're the sole cause of everything, but because you're part of everything. And honestly, that's more meaningful than being the sole cause, because it means you're connected. You're part of a vast web of cause and effect that includes everything and everyone. Your grandmother's choices are affecting you right now. Your choices will affect your great-grandchildren. You're woven into the fabric of everything. That's not meaningless, that's profound, and it means that your compassion matters. Your kindness matters, not because it will single-handedly fix everything. It won't, because you're not the sole cause of anything, but because it's your voice in the choir. It's your contribution to the web. Every moment of compassion you offer, to yourself or others, becomes part of the infinite causation shaping the future. Not the only cause, not the main cause, but a cause, your cause, and that matters. So here's what I want you to take from all of this. Here's what I want you to remember when you walk away from this video. You were never the simple cause they told you to find. You're not a domino in a line of dominoes. You're not a billiard ball being struck by other balls. You're not a simple machine with a bug that needs to be fixed. You're an emergent miracle in a web of infinite causation. And every moment, you get to participate in creating what happens next. Not as the sole cause, but as one beautiful variable in an equation so complex it has no solution, only movement. And that's not a bug. That's not something to fix. That's the actual nature of being alive. Your past choices? They emerged from infinite complexity. Every single one. And you can have compassion for why you made them without carrying the crushing weight of being their sole cause. Your future choices? They'll emerge from infinite complexity too, including your intentions, your values, your learning, your growth. And you can make them freely while knowing they're shaped by everything. Your pain. It emerged from infinite causes. Not your fault, not random, part of the web. Your joy? Same thing. Part of the web. Your contribution to the web. All of it matters. None of it is simple. And you're not broken. You were just given a map that didn't match the territory. A map that said, causation is simple, that you should be able to find the root cause, that you're to blame when you can't. But now you have a better map. A map that shows the infinite web. A map that shows your actual size. Not too big, not too small. A map that shows you as both caused and free, both shaped and creative, both part of everything and genuinely new in every moment. That's the truth. That's what you actually are. And I know this might not feel like relief immediately. This kind of understanding takes time to settle in. You've been carrying the old map for a long time. The old habits of blame and guilt and regret don't disappear in one conversation. But I promise you, if you sit with this, if you practice seeing the web instead of the chain, if you practice holding the paradox instead of resolving it, something will shift. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but gradually the weight will lift. You'll catch yourself starting to blame yourself for something, and you'll remember, infinite web, not simple chain. And the blame will lose its grip just a little. You'll start to replay a painful memory, and you'll remember, this memory is being constructed right now from my anticipated future. And the pain will soften just a little. You'll feel paralyzed by a choice, and you'll remember, I'm free at the level I'm actually living. And you'll choose just a little more easily. It's a practice. Like any practice, it takes time. But it's worth it. God, is it worth it? Because on the other side of this practice is a life where you can make mistakes without them meaning you're broken. Where you can have pain without needing to find someone to blame. Where you can have success without pretending you did it alone. Where you can be fully human. Messy and complex and imperfect and beautiful. And that's what you deserve. Not perfection, not simple answers, but the truth. And the freedom that comes from seeing the truth clearly. So if this perspective shifted something for you, even just a little bit, I want to hear about it. Leave a comment and tell me which idea hit you hardest. Tell me what you're still wrestling with. Tell me what questions this brought up. Because this conversation doesn't end here. This is just the beginning. And if you want more of these conversations that don't simplify you or the world, but actually try to match the beautiful complexity of what's real, subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell. Because I'm going to keep making these. I'm going to keep trying to offer you better maps. Not perfect maps, but better ones. Because you deserve better than fairy tales. You deserve better than simple stories that don't match the territory. You deserve the truth, even when it's strange, even when it's complex, even when it makes your head spin a little. And the truth is, you're an infinite web of causation, shaped by everything, creating something new in every moment. You're both completely caused and completely free. You're both part of everything and genuinely novel. You're not broken. You're not simple. You're not the sole cause of your suffering. You're a miracle of emergence, participating in the infinite causal web of the universe, contributing your unique voice to a choir so vast it includes everything that has ever happened and everything that ever will. That's what you are. That's what you've always been. And now you know it. Thanks for staying curious with me. Thanks for hanging in through the complexity. Thanks for being willing to question the simple stories and look at what's actually true. I'll see you in the next one. Keep going. Keep questioning. Keep participating in the beautiful infinite web. You're doing better than you think, not because everything is fine, but because you're exactly as complex as you should be. And that's perfect. Take care.